On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, I sit in my empty closet to record an episode on Prince's parade-era vault track Empty Room. Basic tracking of the original studio version of Empty Room occurred on early August 1985 at the Washington Avenue Warehouse Studios in Edina, Minnesota. Per Prince Vault, it was recorded with The Revolution after a party for the wedding of Revolution drummer Bobby Z and his wife Vicky, where Prince and then-girlfriend Susanna Melvoin, of course the sister of Revolution guitarist Wendy Melvoin, they got into a fight at the party, as the story goes, and Prince came back from that event, post-party, post-fight, and wrote and recorded this song with the Revolution. So basically, probably they were maybe a little liquored up, having some fun at the party, at the celebration for Bobby Z. And it's like, hey, Bobby, I know that you just got married, but you need to come into the studio and record this song with me that I just wrote. So, you know, all in service for the artist and his whims. And also, according to Prince Vault, Prince revisited the song in 1992, turning it into a quieter piano ballad, possibly to be included on the soundtrack to the James L. Brooks movie I'll Do Anything, or really any number of projects that he was working on at the time. Early to mid-90s was a really fruitful time for Prince's creativity. He was bouncing around from idea to idea, project to project, so who really knows where he had designed to potentially use this song in 92. Prince made a video for the song in 1994, so things get a little even weirder here. And the video co-stars, Maite, of course, as his muse. Most of his work around this time was inspired by and featured Maite very heavily in the visuals. But it wasn't officially released, so this video is available. You can search for it on YouTube and you can watch it, but for some reason Prince never released it, which just goes again back to the whole studio version of the song never being released vibe. But I'll get to that in a minute. Prince was very clearly considering it for something here to make a video for it. Chaos and Disorder maybe, Emancipation maybe, Roadhouse Garden maybe. Finally, though, it was released as a live soundcheck track on the January 2003 release of C-Note. It was released in January of 2003 as an NPG Music Club download, and then in 2004 on C-Note, which was a collection of soundcheck recordings that Prince and the New Power, the 2000s era, New Power generation were doing ahead of their various European and Asian concert dates. So this was at the Empty Room, which is the E in C-Note, was recorded during a soundcheck for the Copenhagen, Denmark show on the One Night Alone tour back in October 2002. So October 2002, there in Copenhagen, Denmark, he does a sound check recording of Empty Room. It gets recorded, gets released as an MPG Music Club download a few months later, and then about a year or so later, it gets released officially on C-Note. Okay, that's a lot about this song. The 92 version that I had cited earlier hasn't been leaked, to my knowledge. So if somebody has access or has heard the 1992 recording of Empty Room, I'd love to hear it. Maybe it's the version in the video. I can't really tell. It sounds to me like the video version is the same old version from 85, but maybe Prince really faithfully re-recorded it in 92 with just maybe some minor changes, and that's why it's, the differences are indecipherable to me, to my ears, my not less than trained ears, to listen to differences to Prince songs. But that's my understanding. And so that the 85 version that we're going to be covering on this episode, recorded during the Parade era, is the one that has been widely leaked. So that's what I'm covering. That's what I'm going to be talking about. The song is an emotionally fraught admission of Prince, where he tries to make sense of his relationship with Susanna, or just relationships in general, which, it's a universal theme. Maybe it was written with a fight with Susanna in mind back in 85, but, recording it in 92, that relationship had been over with for several years at that point. So, the lyrics aren't that specific where it can't be reapplied to, have meaning for a different type of relationship or a different, situation that anybody can relate to. The real life fight must have felt serious and impactful at the time when he wrote this, in order for him to, quickly write and record such a painfully introspective song such as Empty Room. And in my mind, he uses the guitar, as almost as an emotional catharsis of sorts. The song ends with, a blistering guitar solo, which Prince wasn't always, especially during the Parade era, really embarking on a lot of those heavy guitar-based songs. So this particular song felt a bit more like Purple Rain, where the end guitar solo is kind of the emotional catharsis of the song. I think Empty Room is a case where the music and the feeling that it invokes is deeper than just the lines of the song. The performance, the guitar solo, the idea of an empty space being left behind by, a loved one or a lover, is what we're trying to, or what Prince is trying to, I think, convey in this song. Not so much by coming up with these brilliantly catchy lines. It was written so quickly that maybe he felt like the lyrics are just a little bit trite in some respects, or maybe he just felt like they weren't finished in a way that he was happy with. But man, musically, I think the song is great. It's just, as I go through the lyrics and you start dissecting them line by line or verse by verse, it becomes a little clear that he's not saying anything super deep here. He's just kind of, again, invoking a feeling of emptiness and loneliness. So in verse 1, he says, "Empty room, how am I going to fill you? How am I going to fill this empty room? Love is strong, however long, we should have been forever. How am I going to fill this empty room?" So, repetition is key in this song, repeating, "How am I going to fill this empty room?" Twice in the verse. He says empty room several times in each verse. Again, repetition, repeating the lines of just to provide that sense of just loneliness. And that's the overarching feeling that I believe the song is trying to put forth. She's gone. Maybe her stuff is gone. That's why it's an empty room. So maybe it's a combination of her not being there makes it feel empty. Her stuff not being there, if she moved out, makes it feel empty, like literally emptier, because she might have had a number of things that occupied the space, and now those things are gone. But then, of course, there's the emotional aspect of that. An empty room can just be, a metaphor for his heart. An emptier heart. How am I going to fill my heart up with love again now that she's gone? The person I loved is gone. So there's the dual meaning of a literal empty room or empty space with her and her things no longer there if she moved out. But then, of course, the room can equal, a heart in this case. And he's talking about really trying to say, how am I going to refill the emptiness that I feel in my heart now that she is missing? What am I going to do in order to replenish or refill what is missing in my life with her being gone? It kind of reminds me a bit of 17 Days in some respects. Just, talking about somebody being gone and the person's state of mind as a result of that person leaving him. So there's maybe some unclear but tentative parallels that one can make between 17 Days and Empty Room. In verse 2 he says, "Found a strand of your hair by the bathroom window. How am I ever going to get you off my mind? In my bed, in my head, every word you've spoken. How am I ever going to fill this empty room?" So here he's talking about traces left behind, traces of her presence, such as a strand of hair that he found left behind, physical aspects of her that remind him that she was here, just when maybe he thinks that he's starting to get over her or feel a bit better about the situation or forgetting about her somewhat. Then he finds something that triggers him to remember a time that they had together in this space, in this case by the bathroom window. And he's really concerned, like, how am I going to ever get you off my mind if my bed, the physical locations of the bed, by my bathroom window, I'm reminded of you, but also in my head. He says, in my head, how am I going to fill this empty room? And the empty room, again, is just a space in his apartment or house, but also the space in his heart and mind. Those are the two things that, drive emotions, drive love. Not literally the heart. The heart's function isn't to to do that, but the heart is used as a metaphor for love. And so, I've used that metaphor here, even though he never says anything about heart. He says head in this case, but the head and the heart are often connected in poems and in art, stories, language. It talks about people in an emotional relationship, and when that person leaves, or if there's some sort of fraction there, that somebody's heart is broken. They don't say, my head is broken because I broke up with my girlfriend. No, my heart is broken. So we all know that it's not a literal break. It's just an emotional break that Prince is feeling here. Every word you've spoken. So all of these things are still in his head. He can remember precisely the words that she said to him during conversations, maybe during the fight. And so he's still very concerned about how he's going to get over her. How is he going to be able to move on when there's so many reminders, physical reminders and emotional reminders, that will prevent him from getting over her, at least quickly. Lonely hearts, worlds apart, why must they be broken, when we could be somewhere making love? Love is strong, however long, we should have been forever. Baby, why'd you leave me all alone? He's still just trying to make sense of it all. I mean, again, these lines don't really say anything different. They're just different ways of saying it. Lonely heart again. Here he says finally heart. He hadn't said that up to this point, but he mentions his lonely heart. So lonely heart, broken heart, empty heart, all essentially meaning the same thing. Worlds apart, maybe literally worlds apart. I know Susanna was from California, so if she left him, I'm not saying this is what happened, but in this hypothetical scenario, if they broke up, she, in this case, could have picked up and moved back to California, which must feel like a world apart from Minnesota. It's a very long distance. But even if it was just across town, different apartment, somewhere else besides his home or his bed, certainly must feel like worlds apart. Why must they be broken? Why do hearts have to break? So this is, a very, again, common question being asked by artists who are really working through an emotional rift, a relationship that has been severed. Why does pain have to exist? Pain from people dying, pain from people leaving you. It's just a part of life. We all know this. We all know that if you ever allow yourself to fall in love with someone, or you ever find somebody to fall in love with, there's always that risk that they could break your heart. And that's, a vulnerability that a lot of folks are really careful to give their heart to somebody, because they know that once they do, that person has a lot of power to harm them, hurt them emotionally, if there was something that they did that would, again, cause a rift in their relationship, cause a fight, cause a breakup. If you never fall in love, or you never love somebody, you never have to worry about your heart being broken. But then I think that for most folks, for most people in life, the risk is usually worth it. We should have been forever. Why'd you leave me all alone? Very, very sad sack emotional statement there. It doesn't really talk about the root causes. I don't know if the song is intended to do that. It's mostly just a way for Prince to get through this fight, this situation, the thing that seemed very dire. Maybe it seemed like it was going to be the end. Why did you leave me all alone? Doesn't really allow for there to be a proper conversation about what happened and why was there a fight. It certainly points to somebody saying, you did this to me. You left me, so now I'm brokenhearted. Why did you leave me all alone? Well, maybe that person had a really good reason. Maybe they didn't. There's no backstory here, so we just have to take it at face value and listen to the lyrics that Prince is singing about here. And in this particular case, she left him. And that's really all we know. Why did you leave me all alone, he says. We should have been forever. There's no place for answers in this song. It's not a back and forth. It's not a let's have a dialogue about what occurred to get us here. We're just dealing with the aftermath. And yeah, there's maybe a future song that could be about a reflection, something like Strange Relationship. Really is a song that looks much deeper into the causes of a relationship going sour or going bad. This is not that song. This song is really just a quick catharsis. I am sad. I don't want to keep being reminded of this person that I love who's left me. How am I going to get past it? How am I going to get over her leaving me? And the line, why did you leave me all alone? If I'm just thinking of similar lines that Prince had written up to this point, it kind of reminds me a bit of When Doves Cries, how could you just leave me standing alone in a world so cold? I know it's not identical, but it does kind of bring some of those vibes back. How could you do this? type lyric writing. On barren walls, tears fall. What's the use in crying? I gotta find a way to fill this empty room. The last lyrics of this song are essentially saying what we've already heard. The barren walls, again, is another way to describe and to describe the empty room that he's in. So empty rooms often have barren walls. Maybe he's trying to invoke, visuals of two people who have broken up and they've both decided to leave. Maybe it was a shared home, and now the painful memories that Prince was talking about earlier in the song that exist all around him in this place, this empty room. Strands of hair found by the bathroom window, things of that nature that have just been too much. So maybe they've chosen to move out. So now the walls are barren. All the artwork is taken down, pictures taken down. There's nothing left. Tears are falling, but he says, what's the use in crying? I've got to find a way to move on. So if nothing else, there's a bit of acceptance now being acknowledged in these last lines of the song. He's basically saying, before it's all questions about, how am I going to ever move on? How am I going to get you off my mind? How am I going to fill this empty room? Why did you leave me all alone? Now he's saying, I got to find a way to fill this empty room. Traces of her are gone. He's trying to erase the memories. It's time to move on. What's the use in crying? The relationship is done. Tears have already fallen. And he feels that he's done with crying. He feels that he's done with crying, and he's done with feeling sorry for himself, I guess. And, the acceptance, the admission that moving on is the only way forward for him is, I guess, kind of a resigned way of ending the song. But it matches the vibe of the song. I don't think it would... I'm glad it wasn't just another, why did you leave me all alone, or how am I going to fill this empty room? It's more of a closure to the song. Then the guitar solo is really kind of another aspect of closure that Prince provides for this track. But those are the lyrics to Empty Room. So Prince and Susanna didn't break up. We know that. So this is, written in summer of 1985. Yeah, they might have been going through a rocky period, but they didn't break up. They had stayed together for at least another year. So this didn't necessarily precede a literal breakup, but maybe it was the start of some fracture in their relationship that ultimately led to a breakup. I don't know that for a fact. I wasn't there, of course. So, yeah, but it kind of feels like it did because that's the way Prince wrote it. Prince wrote it to be more like a song that is speaking to an actual breakup that just occurred. And he's dealing with it. So at this point, I'm going to read the passage in the Parade and Sign of the Times era studio sessions book from 85-86 around Empty Room. Susanna had a quote here in this chapter. It was insane. It was Bobby and Vicky's wedding celebration. He made everybody go back to the studio and record this song. So yeah, just like I had kind of envisioned. Yeah. It was a busy weekend for celebrating with the closest to Prince. A surprise party was planned for Susan Rogers' birthday, and a gathering was also arranged to celebrate the recent wedding of Bobby Z and his bride Vicky. I got married, but I had a party 3 months later, remembered Bobby Z. Okay, so they didn't just get married. Then the night before my huge party, I had a party in my mother's party room at her apartment complex that Prince came to. He was having some sort of fight with Susanna, and at the end of this party, he asked if we could rehearse. He said we could bring the party over there, and we recorded Empty Room. That, I think, was about Susanna. To understand the context of this, the scene needs to be set with the fact that Prince and Susanna were struggling. He was constantly busy, and his attention was often divided between his music and his work. Their fights were getting more frequent, and the reality of them continuing as a couple was shaky. Bobby's history with Prince was extensive, and in many ways he was one of the closest friends and confidants, and he recognized that Bobby had found a perfect partner in Vicky. Prince loved Vicky. Vicky is like the Revolution's wife, explained Susanna. She was the non-musician wife of one of his band members that he actually really, really liked, and she is an extraordinary human being. Prince wasn't someone who scheduled many non-music related events, although he made time for the intimate celebration of their commitment. But the day started with a reminder of Susanna's presence. He woke up in the morning and he saw this hair in his bathroom and he taped it to the mirror, explains Melvoin, who also attended the event. After Bobby and Vicky had done their vows and everybody was in the room and Prince is behind, in back of everybody, he's just standing there looking at the whole thing, wide-eyed, doughy-eyed, and looking at me and seeing me talking to all my friends, Bobby, Vicky, Matt, his family, my family. He knew how entwined I was with all of it. This wasn't like, I'm leaving some anonymous person. He realizes this is my Susanna. This is the person I really care about. I love her. He may have had that moment with everybody who was so loving each other on that day. It may have been that moment where he was like, what did I do? And it's when he went to the studio and he called Bobby and everybody else in the band and said, come and record, and they did Empty Room, it was totally not a surprise coming from him. It was always Prince first. Always. No one was like, God damn him, we're not going. I'm putting my foot down. It was like, okay, let me just get this over with. He fought with Susanna the day of our wedding party, and he wanted to be with family. We were his family, reasons Vicky. I feel like we were his family, and he wanted to bring us back to the studio, and he didn't want the day to end. That's what I felt. Vicky said the right answer, affirms Bobby Z. She's like, sure, we'll come out. And most people were shocked. And then he said, well, you can bring the party out there. So it was fun. He just wanted to take the party to his place, observes Lisa. That totally makes sense. If he didn't like something, he would leave. If he did like something, he would leave and take you with him. Wendy went with the band to the studio, but was frustrated at his power play. He pulled us away from the fucking party, and we had to record the song, and it's like, oh, you fucking baby. Can we just now go to the party and celebrate? No. You want to go and get it out of your system and sing about your breakup. Come on, it was just stupid. And then we did this really sad song. It was pretty, reflects Bobby. Vicky and I were the last ones there in the control room. She fell asleep, and he said, you guys have a big day tomorrow. You got to get her out of here. But she was a trooper in the end. And I thought it was an incredible song, and I thought we played really well. I thought it was a good take. Sad song, but happy night. It was so emotional. The song, a slow, heartfelt ballad, was written directly for Susanna, detailing his pain about losing his connection with her, and even referenced the strand of her hair he had found that morning. The lyrics reveal that he was heartbroken about her leaving him, but not acknowledging any issues that he may have brought to the breakup, which I kind of pointed to. He recorded that song and played it for me the next day and left, remembers Susanna. He was having a hard time, and I could hear that he was troubled in the song, and he was sad. And I was sad. So that is what I have to say about Empty Room. It was never released. It was recorded again in March of 1992 at Paisley Park. And a later version from 2002 was released on C-Note, which I already talked about. Promotional video was produced for the updated version. Okay, so then I guess I have heard the updated version from 92, because that is the version that's in the video, according to the book. So there you go. The 85 version is leaking. The 92 version is listenable as part of the video, although to untrained ears, again, they sound very similar. I'm sure if I played them back to back, I would identify differences. I didn't bother to do that because the songs are so similar to me. It wasn't like there was this wholesale change in tempo or tone. The songs are very similar in how they're recorded. I think the lyrics are probably even the same. So be my guest. Listen to the the 90s version by watching the video, then listen to the 85 version that is available on streaming. I've got it streaming on my YouTube channel as well. And compare for yourself. What are the big differences, if any? And then you've got, of course, the official live version, soundcheck version, I call it live, on C Note. So we've got a few different versions of the song that you can listen to at your leisure. But I will close this episode with that, and thank you very much for listening. This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show at pressrewind.net and on various social media apps. And until next time, thank you very much, and goodbye.